Great franchise systems, they're built around qualified franchisees, and nothing's more important as a franchisor than your franchise development process, selling franchises, and onboarding qualified franchisees. Today, we're going to speak with Brett Payne, CEO and founder of Contender eSports. And what's special about this conversation, not only has Brett built and grown his franchise system, but he has amazing product and amazing service where he helps brokers and franchisors with their sales. Hey, Brett, I'm excited. We're going to spend some time today, get into the detail and like the holy grail of franchising, which really is franchise sales, selling to qualified franchisees. And from the outside looking in, I mean, I've gotten to witness your team at Contender eSports, all the great things you've been doing, and now helping other franchisors and helping brokers. So let's kick this off here.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, Brett, just some background. I mean, if you just let everyone know what you've done with Contender and what's on tap here in terms of how, in a thoughtful way, you're helping franchisors overcome very significant obstacles on franchise sales.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you for that. Accidentally, I think I would probably answer that, Charles. I mean, I've just been doing my thing for 15 years. So I worked in nonprofits for a long time and worked overseas and did a whole bunch of stuff. I was in Eastern Europe for a good majority of my adult life and kind of learned how to be a hack at things and just kind of do things on my own. And when I got into franchising, the first concept that we had, the guy said, I really want you to franchise this concept, but I don't have a team for you. Can you just do this all by yourself? And I had no idea what I was doing, Charles. Of course, I said yes. I mean, that can't be a problem. And man, I learned a lot. So the first franchise I ever sold for that concept, it was called Classic Rock Coffee. I sold the national rights to a gentleman in Pakistan. And so when we set that location up in Islamabad, I thought, well, if we can sell a franchise in Islamabad, I can sell one anywhere. And I just started creating systems. But the problem was I was managing all of the marketing, all of the leads, all of the sales, just the legal, everything. And so I had to create systems to kind of make it, doable for myself. So I did that for a number of years. And then in 2018, I started my own franchise called Contender eSports. And it's not because I play video games. It had nothing to do with that. I just realized there was a place in the market that we could start a new concept and start a Contender eSports. And it was really the same kind of thing, building in the same mechanisms that I had used for the previous franchise, where I wasn't using brokers. I wasn't using marketing agencies. I was doing it all myself, but I systemized it. And that's how we grew Contender eSports and continued to grow that. And then I just had a buddy of mine say, you really need to tell people how you're doing this. And so I spent a number of months kind of systemizing the whole thing. And really it was a brain dump, Charles, where I just did a million videos and just kind of created this thing. So at some point I could offer it to people. And that opportunity came up several months ago. And we started working with franchise brokers and franchisors to help them know the system that I'm using.
And that's and we'll put up an image, but it's salessystem.ai.
That's right.
Brett, so for me, it's interesting, right? As franchise counsel, and we work with a number of emerging brands, and I do see a shift in the industry itself where emerging franchisors, even brokers, it's getting more difficult to gain traction.
Yeah.
Right. There's, everyone is inundating the market from call centers and LinkedIn solicitations. And so as we have this conversation, let's assume we're dealing with an emerging franchisor that checks the boxes on solid unit economics, good management team. They have a great brand story and they have value to deliver, right? Because if you don't have value to deliver, you shouldn't be selling anything.
Right.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, a hardworking franchise broker that's in these broker groups and, they're paying a lot of money for leads. And so how does Sales System AI, how do you help the franchisors and the brokers?
Well, I think the trick obviously is, not losing control of the process anywhere. When I was working with brokers, a lot of times I found they like to learn about brands, but of course they just have to know about so many brands. It's impossible to kind of know about all of them. But I know they would like latch onto some brands and things like that. But then the challenges were, how do I find people to talk to? Not just how do I find people to talk to, but how do I find qualified people? And that's something that's really not taught because it's a bit of a science. I ran a marketing agency for 25 years, so I know that you have to do multiple things to try to reach people, and everybody doesn't kind of speak the same language. Some people, you have to get their attention, right? So it's all about getting attention. Um, so one of the things for a broker or for a new franchisor is to understand who is their customer, who's interested in their concept, and to not do this kind of shotgun approach to everybody, and use methods that may have worked 5 years or 10 years or 20 years ago. They don't work anymore. So how do you stay up to date with like what's happening? How do you know where those customers are, and how do you target them, and how do you become very, very relational to where they feel like they know you? So a lot of times, Charles, one of the things I tell people when I'm talking to them, especially when it's somebody new, I'll just write like, Google me. And that does take a lot of defenses off of people because they go, oh, well, I was going to Google him anyway, but he's telling me to go. And that way they can see like all this different mix of who I am, because it's all about building trust, right? That's for a franchise broker. That's for a franchisor. You've got to build trust with your possible applicants or possible clients, and that takes time. It's not always a direct sale. I mean, we have people that come to us and talk to us that we haven't talked to in years, but because we're consistent about things, and they're like, oh, I've seen you all over whatever, YouTube or TikTok or whatever the thing is, being very natural, it does build trust. And I think that's what you have to do. But then you take that idea, and how do we systemize this so that we're not being scatterbrained and running all over the place trying to make this happen? There does have to be a structure to it. And that's what salesystem.ai does. We've had this entire structure. We know the mechanisms, the flow, how to get qualified leads from multiple places, all coming into a single place, not with a single piece of software. It has nothing to do with that, but bringing those people in and then controlling that workflow to get them from, I'm kind of interested in this concept, to all the pieces, the steps that have to take place before they go, I think I'm ready to sign an agreement, and they feel super comfortable about that, and they wire the money. In salesystem.ai, we're teaching brokers to actually do that entire process for a franchisor. Takes all the weight off the franchisor, because there are some that just aren't good at selling. And then for a franchisor that they want to do this internally, but maybe they don't have 9 people to run all their sales stuff for them. Maybe it's them, or maybe it's them and one other person. We can teach them to do the work of about 40 people with these systems that we build. And some franchisors look at it, Charles, and they go, can you just do this for us? And so in that case, we do that for them as well.
So Brett, if we're looking at the spectrum of franchise development, just at some basic building blocks, I mean, we have lead generation.
Yeah.
We have, for lack of a better term, brand assets or media to interact with the lead.
Yeah.
Then we have process for closing. I mean, what are the main buckets you look at, or salesystem.ai, when you're evaluating a franchisor and putting the system, anyone watching this video right now, what are the buckets they need to start evaluating?
Yeah. Yeah. Number one is who am I trying to reach? Okay. So depends on what your brand is, depends on who you're trying to appeal to. We work with lots of different franchises, so we have to face the same decision with them when we bring on a new one. We're going to look at that and go, who really wants this thing? Where are they? How do we find them? And then you have to build your lead mechanisms around that kind of thing. Sometimes it's LinkedIn, sometimes it's Instagram, sometimes it's TikTok, but not every brand is on those kind of things. Not their customers aren't on those kind of platforms, but some of them are. But you have to identify that first. Once you have that, you better know a lot about marketing. So you've got to have the right strategies, especially do digital marketing or newsletters or whatever the thing is, to get people's attention. And that's where people, Charles, they get hung up because they don't know these things. They know how to run their franchise business, but or not their franchise. They know how to run their business, but franchising and marketing is a completely separate thing. And so the tendency is always, well, I'll just go hire a marketing company. But the problem is that marketing company doesn't know the DNA of your brand. And it's really hard for them to kind of understand the nuances of that. So for a new brand, understanding who their customer is, realizing, do I want to utilize the resources I have in digital marketing and other kinds of things, and knowing how to reach them. And then once I am getting interest in my brand, how do I qualify them so that I'm not on Zoom or on a Google Meet or on a phone call for, an hour and a half for every meeting just to find out at the very end of it, I really love your concept. The only thing I have to do now is just find the money and I'm going to do it. And anybody who's ever been a franchise or a franchise broker has been on those kind of calls. And there is nothing worse than going, why didn't you tell me this in the first 10 seconds? A lot of times we're scared to ask, right? Because every lead is a good lead, but that's not true. We all know that. Someone told us that in the past, but it's not true. So how do we make sure that when we're getting this influx of leads, which we can do in lots of different ways, how do we make sure that we're filtering those down to where when we get on a call, the candidate really wants to be on the call with us, number one. Number two, they already know 95% of what you're going to tell them on that call anyway. They already know the brand. Number three, they feel like they know the owner or the franchisor. And number four, there's a clear agenda for what that meeting's going to be, and it should never be more than 30 minutes. So getting to that place right there, I mean, what I just said in these last couple of minutes, for most people who are brokers or who are franchisors, if they could just get to that part and ask themselves, like, how much time am I spending on these meetings? Because just, the book, Death by Meeting, I mean, it's really true in franchising, right? So, and these meetings don't always produce money. So how do we get qualified people that know the brand, that fit those 4 criteria into a call to where they feel super safe with us? And then we can trickle information to them, get them the FDD, the applications, all those kinds of things, and work through the process while educating them along the way to take that sales process from 6 months to 3 weeks. That's the idea.
Yeah, Brett, you just put a ton into those statements in a good way. One of the biggest issues, and I want to touch on all 3 of the topics you raised. What's, I won't say sad, but unfortunate that I see so many times, are brands or startup and emerging brands. They are working with an outside agency. They're deploying dollars in different marketing channels.
Yeah.
But they don't have the media and the communication. Everything they're promoting is generic, and you never get to the trust, and you never get to that real connection. And then they think the marketing doesn't work or the media doesn't work, So Brett, you mentioned 3 things, right? Because we have a great audience, franchisors, people like you, and some that are struggling, right? Unlike you. So understanding who your target audience is, your avatar, deploying your digital, right, with the right assets, and then the qualification process. So let's talk about building the avatar, or understanding who your target audience is, who your target candidates are. What's the mistake you see most brands making, and what's the solution you focus on, and how do you go about it?
I think obviously with emerging brands, the tendency is just to sell no matter what. Like, everyone faces that, right? I'm sure you've had clients that have faced the same thing, that they bring on franchisees and, man, they can cut the check, so I'm going to take them. I mean, it's always the tendency, because you've got to fund this thing, right? Unless you have some kind of outside funding coming in. So I think patience is the one thing, and to really qualify them. I tell people on our sales calls, our calls with them, one of the first things we tell them on our initial call with them, that's 20 or 30 minutes, is after I do a little kind of intro thing and I go over the questions I've already answered for them, I let them know, like, we're going to tell you what this process looks like. I'm going to tell you that in just a minute, or the guy that works with me is going to tell you. And one of the things that I want you to know is that any time along the process that you want to put your foot on the brake, or you want to hit pause, or you just want to say no, or you want to say, I don't like Brett Payne, it could be that. It's totally fine with us. because I don't want these to be sales calls. I want them to be exploration. We're getting to know you. Are you the right owner for our market? And are we the right brand for you? And so it takes all the pressure off, Charles, to do that. So when we get people on these calls, and we are trying to obviously be with people that are, that are qualified, you do have to know a lot about marketing to find these people. But I think one of the keys is getting the trick to make sure that they really understand your brand in a way that is useful for where we are today. So there's a lot of brands, they send out, lots of PDFs and lots of this and lots of that, but you have to ask yourself, like, the person who's going to buy my brand, how are they consuming information? That's a big question, right? I can tell you, for me, I consume most of my information on podcasts while I'm driving in between meetings. It's just easy for me. So if you're a brand out there and you are expecting people to get information about who you are by a PDF or maybe by a website or ask yourself, is that how you're consuming information? Or is there a different way that you're doing it that you can get them caught up to speed so that they feel like you actually thought about how they want to get these details? That's one of the big things that we do with SalesSystem.ai is and in our own business, is to make sure that when people get on a call with us, we use this thing called a candidate guide that we invented years ago, and it's spectacular. It solves so many problems, and we teach everybody how to do this thing. I ask everybody the question. It's one of the first things I say to them. I say, by the way, I say this exactly like this. I know you're probably tired of my voice because you've heard me talk about a number of different things before you got on this call with me. Is there anything on those particular topics that I talked about that was unclear that I can help you with? And every one of them, Charles, goes like this. No, like, you answered all my questions. Now, remember, this is the first time I had ever met them, right? If I would have sent them a PDF or a book or this or that, it may not have worked. So I think understanding the language is important.
That's a great example. Too many franchisors take they're very passive with this. I mean, it's sort of a simple, and maybe overused example. When I look at a franchise sales website and I see as featured items the royalty rate they're charging, the estimated initial investment, I'm like, wow, I still don't even know what the franchise is for the opportunity. And I know I'm going to pay X percent royalty, but I don't know anything else. And I've seen some of your systems, which are amazing. I mean, you're affirmatively, even before that first call, you're giving them all the information they're going to want to have in a way that, as you said, they can consume and is meaningful to them. It's not just a data dump.
Well, the way that it happened, Charles, is when I did the first franchise at Classic Rock Coffee, I realized, you do 1,000 phone calls or whatever it is, and you know what they're going to say. You can even hear yourself like saying the same phrases over and over. We all do this in business, right? So I started about 3 months into it. I started jotting down just on a piece of paper, like when I started to hear the same question more than once, and I came up with my list of 10 to 12, right? That we call them FAQs. I didn't have to make them up. I had heard the same questions over and over. So I could pretty much predict if I was going to get on a cold call with somebody who filled out a form, said they wanted to know about the brand. We scheduled a call. I got on the phone or a Zoom with them. I pretty much knew the questions that they were going to ask. So I just asked myself, why am I waiting for them to do this? Why don't I just answer them before they get on the call with me? And so I took that list of questions and I created a mechanism that before I got on the call, I provided that to them. And I said, at your convenience, I want you to go through this. And we just created this little thing. It's super easy, super simple. I can adjust it, edit it however I want. We do change it from time to time, but it's usually 10 to 12 top questions. And I tell them, if you have the chance to listen to this, then it will answer 95% of the questions you have before you get on the call with me, so that when you're on the call, I can talk about you and what you are trying to achieve. Let's not talk about all this other stuff that I know you have questions about. Let's not waste your time with that. So I started with that, Charles, as like a suggestion. I then moved it to, after a while, I realized some people weren't paying it. I wasn't putting enough importance on it. I then said, I really strongly think that we should do it, but if you don't have a chance, we'll still get on the call. I had the numbers shrank in terms of the numbers of people that weren't following it. And then I was getting myself in the same conversation. And in the back of my head, I'm like, if they just would have listened to this or paid attention to this for a few minutes, we would have answered these questions. I then got to a point when everyone said, Brett, there's no way this is ever going to work. I made it mandatory. So I don't get on a phone call with anybody unless they complete this thing that we give to them. It's super relational. They hear me. It's my personality. I know the questions that they're going to ask, and I go through them very, very clearly. And I've never had one person, and we've had, I can't even tell you how many calls like that. I've never had one person say, why did you make me go through that? Ever. We've only had people say, thank you for doing that. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, this just saved me 2.5 hours
Right.
of explaining all this stuff. So I would say that would be the first thing for every franchisor that has been on a sales call is just take 5 minutes. Everyone can do it. Write down 10 to 12 questions that you know people are going to ask about your brand. Not about the royalty structure. Yes, of course, those kind of things. But there's things that are specific to your brand. Like, if you're putting on a roof or something like that, like where do you get your materials at? Like just basics. I just made that one up, but just basic stuff that everyone asks about your brand. Write those things down and then see if you can figure out a way to relationally communicate that to somebody before they get on a call with you, because then everybody wants to talk about them. They're not there to talk about your details of your friend. They want to talk about how do they, what's the reason why they want to get a franchise? Are they mad at their boss? Is their spouse pressuring them to open their own business? What's the reason? And so you can spend the time on the call to talk about them and not your details stuff that's just digestible.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good paradigm shift compared to how many focus on the process itself, and they're never answering those questions. And I guess it always comes down to, right, franchisees questioning, how do I do it? Can I do it? How do you help me do it? Right,
Yep.
important things. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine the self-filtering mechanism and how much time you've saved. And people have said this is not a good fit for me, right? Just from listening to those FAQs.
Yeah. It's such a good thing. I mean, people, they can disqualify themselves, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I tell people, like, the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. And I tell the people that all the time. So don't feel pressure, but also we don't want them to feel pressure on the phone call when we're trying to explain all these things to go, oh man, that's not me. I feel bad. I don't have enough money. I'm not going to be able to do that. Because people they get defensive like that. So give them a nice, safe, easy way to process the information before they get on the call with you so that they can go. And sometimes we do have this happen, Charles. We will check in with them, or they won't fill it out, or whatever the thing is. And they'll go, yeah, I just realized this isn't the right time for me. Or it's great, because we can't just keep hitting that nail on the head over and over and hoping they're going to, be the right person or have the money or whatever the situation is. So it's serving on both sides.
With the same, standardized email, checking in with them and other nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. Like, I'm following up. Are you going to do this? I mean, it's the worst things in the world. So, and that thing, that whole idea that we've just described has been so powerful with us, but it's an example of one piece of a multiple of things that we do to really try to make the process easy for an applicant to get to know Contender eSports, how we sell Contender eSports, get them all the information, all those kind of things. And we tackle all the things, all real estate, legal. You guys know that. You're involved in all this kind of thing. And it's just a seamless process. I mean, my thing, to be honest with you, in helping franchise brokers was at Contender eSports. I decided years ago I probably wasn't going to work with them because so many of them didn't know how to do these things, and they would find out all this stuff about us, but then they wouldn't know what to do. They wouldn't know how to find a lead. And then they would take the lead, if they ever got one, and they would send it over to us, and then they weren't part of the sales process because they didn't know how to sell Contender eSports. So they were really depending on us to do it. And I've asked franchise brokers, I said, what are the two most frustrating things for you? And they said, number one is we can't get enough leads, qualified leads. I go, okay, I can help you with that. And I go, what else? And they go, I don't know. I go, what do you feel when you finally do get that good lead and you pass it over to a franchisor and it's out of your control, does it, like, now what? Because if they don't sell it, you don't get paid. And they go, you're right. No one's ever told me that before, but that is, I feel anxiety about that. I said, let's fix that for you. So for franchise brokers, we want to help them solve both sides of the coin. That's what we're trying to do. And so that's why we train them. And, you know, it's completely self-serving, Charles. Like, if I were going to train you to be a franchise broker for me, this is what I would teach you to do. Because yeah.
What's great about that, Brett, is, and you're an experienced franchisor, and other franchisors will know this, but who listen, but not sort of the startups and the emerging, which is, as a franchisor, you need to realize that when a broker recommends a candidate to you, they need to have confidence in you as a franchisor, in your conversion systems,
Yeah.
to know that you're going to nurture this lead properly, treat them properly. And if it turns out that it's not a good fit for that candidate, have the lead have a great experience and go back to the broker and find something a better fit.
That's right. Because we have to remember those brokers. I mean, this is what I would see, these cycles with brokers, right? There's a gazillion of them in the United States.
Yeah.
You don't need a license to become a broker. You just become a broker. And so guys and ladies would get into this business and they would stick around for 3-4 months. And it's not because they didn't like franchising. It's because they couldn't make money, because either they couldn't get the leads to sell, or they got the leads and they gave them to franchisors and they were handcuffed. And if they didn't sell it, they didn't have money. And these are people with spouses and kids and mortgages. And I felt bad for them. I still feel bad for them. That's why I'm so motivated to help brokers. Like, some of them are superstars. I mean, there's a lot of superstars out there, but there are a ton that are just struggling beyond belief. And with franchisors have the same thing, that they go, oh, they're a franchise broker, so therefore they must be able to take care of the sales business for me. And franchisors are out there hoping these things are going to be sold, and they're not, and they don't know. I talked to a guy the other day. He said, I've talked to so many franchise brokers. I haven't had one sell one thing for, I talked to two, you know them. I haven't had one franchise broker sell anything for me ever. And I'm like, why? And they go, they just, you know, it's the same exact situation. I heard the other day, and you probably know this, Charles, 80% of all franchises in the United States have less than 10 units. That's a massive amount of emerging brands that need to get past that 10 unit mark, and they don't know what to do. And so that's why we also try to help the franchisors say, this is how you're going to get out of this nonsense. Like, we can either teach you how to do it yourself. You don't have to worry about any of this, and you can control your own destiny. And as I said before, some of them just say, that's fantastic, Brett, can you do it for me? I go, well, it kind of defeats the part, but yes, we can do it for you. So either way, we're trying to address that 80% of brands, of franchise brands out there.
Yeah. I mean, Brett, this is so true, right? And brokers and franchisors, and it's the 10% that do 90% of the deals, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there's so many superstar brokers out there, but there are a lot struggling.
Yeah.
And same with franchisors. And again, outside looking in, getting to exactly what you're focused on, what you've developed over the years, the lessons you've learned. I can say, as franchise counsel, I see we're, good friends that are superstar brokers, and I see our emerging brands that accelerate and grow. And it's all these systems and processes, and getting to something that you mentioned earlier, which is creating a genuine connection with the candidates, not hiding who you are, being very genuine, not fearing that. And then you can break through. And of course, you have to have the good unit level economics and performance. But so many brands out there, Brett, they're under the 10 units, but then they're deploying marketing tactics or PR, or hiring people as if they're the bigger brands. They're following their game plan. They're not asymmetrical, and they're not going to win.
Yeah, people laugh at me because everywhere I go, I carry with me this backpack, this Contender eSports backpack on. I don't have a briefcase. And everybody knows I carry this backpack. And there's two things inside my backpack that, as soon as I pull them out, people are like, why in the world do you have that? One of them is a selfie stick, and people think that's ridiculous. but I think you think that's ridiculous. But the reason,
I know what I love though? I
what,
love how you own that and you're like, this is great.
100%. And the
Yeah.
reason is because I'll go to the gym in the morning and I'll have this thought about something that I need to be able to tell applicants or franchisees or whatever, because I have this rule in my office. If anyone asks a question more than twice in a process, we're never answering it again. We're going to find a way to answer that for them so they don't have to answer that. It goes back to my whole thing that I talked about before. So I carry that selfie stick with me because, again, about authenticity, when we get people to that first meeting, we're doing our candidate, we call it a candidate guide meeting. We do our candidate guide meeting, and then we know they're going to fill out an application, and we're going to get them the FDD, and they're going to ask about real estate and all these kind of things. Throughout that process, we are trickling little pieces of information to them. Oh, Bob, I forgot to tell you about what it means to have a franchise attorney. Here's a link. Let me explain this to you. It'll just go out like a few days later. So these kinds of pieces of content that we create, if you saw them, they are not produced. It's usually me driving somewhere. I have this thought of what we need to do. I purposefully, with different scenery behind me, I'll grab my selfie stick, I'll get my phone, and I'll just say, hey, some people have a question about why do you need to get a franchise attorney? Let me explain this to you for just a sec, because this is going to help you. It's going to help you save money. Or it might be a question about whatever, something in the sales process. So we put together a series of, it's kind of standardized now, but there's probably a series of like 10 or 15 of these little 1 minute, 1.5 minute things. Some of them are video, some of them are audio. I do things on my phone where I just record on voice memo, where we get information to people, we trickle it down, but it's all about get to know the owner. If you're an owner of an emerging brand, the reason why people are going to buy your brand, it is because the economic structures and because they're interested in it, but it's about trust. They need to know that you're authentic. And that's why sometimes I come out of the gym and I don't look like this, or I've come out of a meeting or something. I want them to see all aspects of me, because I think that's really important. Now they're going to find it anyway, right? So why not just be proactive and just tell them?
I mean, there's so many truths there, and it's so smart. One of our clients launched like 3 months ago, and legitimately we had to have a conversation of, hey, we said we're going to limit sales to 5. You're almost there in 3 months. So you have to start shutting off sales, right? And they have such a power, their social presence. But the one thing they did that was so smart, and we talked about beforehand, I said, let's get a videographer there and let's have it just talk about what it feels like, what you've built, what we're doing, not,
Yeah.
and it was a beautiful video. And this isn't the only reason, but it's genuine. And then I see brands that we don't represent, and you could get through their whole franchise sales website. You don't know who the founders are. So they want
Yeah.
someone to buy a franchise. I know what the royalty is.
Yeah.
I don't know who the
Yep.
founder is. And I would only imagine that's the tip of the iceberg. So
Yeah.
could you imagine all the materials and things that you guys are doing and assisting with? And I'm imagining them where they're just replicating, the blank industry is a great industry. Our royalty is this, and there's no connection at the
Yeah.
human level.
Yeah,
So,
that's one of the things that we try to teach the brokers and try to teach the franchisors about. I mean, even when we represent franchisors, it's not us on there. Like, we have a whole list of things. There's this kind of onboarding thing that we have, but then we have assets that we say, we're going to have you create these because I need you to be the face of this. I could do it. I mean, obviously, because I like this kind of stuff, but I need you to be the face of it because I need them to buy into you. We're going to be involved in all this, but we're behind the scenes. We're not going to be pitching this thing. We're going to make you, I tell them, we're going to make you famous. That's what we're trying to do. And so when I have them make content, it's funny, Charles, we'll give them a list of like, here's the things I need you to make content. It's very simple, but here's the questions. Here's an example of me doing the exact same. This is exactly what I use right now. And I tell them, take your phone, go somewhere. I tell them, or we tell them, hold your phone exactly like this. This is the camera that you look at on your phone. Do one cut. I want it to be authentic. Don't worry about anything else. I've got editors. We'll make it look nice. We'll take out the uhs. We'll fix the lighting. We'll put the subtitle. We'll do all that stuff. I want to make it super easy for you as a franchisor. And for the brokers, we teach them to talk to the franchisors exactly the same way. get the content for them, and pitch those brands. And that's how it's got to be authentic like that.
I love doing these podcasts and whatnot. And we've spoken, I've even gotten your messages that you send to my phone, and I appreciate, and like our team loves working together and everything you're doing. But it always blows me away when we get to spend some time together. Like, and I know you operate at level 11 out of 10. I see it all the time. But hearing this and having this conversation, for everyone who's listening to this, if you're a new franchisor, you probably haven't experienced these pain points or challenges yet, but everything here is, everything's a learned experience, and don't fall victim to where a lot of emerging and startup brands, they get lost and they play a game you really can't win. And the same for brokers. I'll be at a broker conference. I'll be speaking at one next month. I'm looking forward to it. What I think franchisors need to know, especially the new ones, these brokers that you want to get deals from, they're business owners like you.
Yeah.
They're starting a business, they're investing money, developing leads. So connect with them at the human level, understand, ask how you could help them. And part of it's going to be your systems and processes, and for sure, everything that Brett's doing. And I would definitely check out salesystem.ai. And Brett, we have some client coaching and mastermind groups coming up. I'd love to if you have some time, join us in some of our masterminds.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime.
Brett, I appreciate the time today, and a lot more stuff to follow up. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Charles. It's great to see you, my friend.